Hi, friends. Pastor Terry here. We are Dalhousie Church, and this is the 10-Minute Coach. I want to take you back into Deuteronomy chapter 5, verses, specifically 12 through 15, but we're in the Ten Commandments. We're looking at them as part of these three sermons that Moses preached to the next generation of the first people of God, the children of those who came out of Egypt but rebelled against God at Kadesh Barnea and didn't go into the land. They failed to trust God. They rejected God. They said, look, God, yeah, sure, you brought us out of Egypt, but they even made harsh accusations against him, saying he just brought us out here to kill him. And this extraordinary disregard for who God is, for the work that he had done, for the miracles he had performed in order to bring them out of Egypt, was the final straw. And they received judgment. And that judgment was 40 years of wandering. They did not enter the rest that God had intended for them. Now, that concept of entering the rest of God, of course, was to move into a land, to have to take it over, was to work the soil. So it was not an absence of work, but it was a place to meet with God, a place to be with God, a place to raise family, to know his provision of security and comfort and a sense of prosperity. These were the things that they looked forward to by going into the land, and they did not get that. The last couple of questions in the sermon notes invite you to think about that. But first, let's go back to just what the Sabbath rest promise is. And I've invited you to think a little bit, to reflect and share with those whom you are with. What was Sabbath for you when you were growing up? So I'm assuming it was the Sunday. I grew up in a Christian home, and we observed Sabbath, sort of. We gathered for worship every Sunday. We would come home and have Dad didn't go to work. There were still chores to be done. We had a small horse farm, and so there were still things that had to be done to take care of the livestock, to maybe take care of the home. I might have cut the lawn, on a Sunday afternoon. I had friends who were a generation or two older than me, who would talk about their growing up experiences, which were, I would use the word legalistic in terms of Sabbath. And it was basically the assertion that there should be no activity, like no fun. So you didn't go out and throw a ball around, on Sunday afternoon. You went to church, and then you came home, you read the Bible, you did something quiet. It was a tough reality for children. It felt very punitive. It felt very constricting, and I don't believe that it was in keeping with the purposes that God has for Sabbath. We use the language of recreation versus recreation, that this is an opportunity to experience a sense of recreation, a resetting of heart, soul, mind, energy. I love where Pete Scazzaro suggests that one of the most spiritual things you could do on a Sunday afternoon may be to have a nap. That is maybe what you most need. And so it begins to put into relief just how beautiful the provision of Sabbath is intended to be. We've been on this journey so far through the first four Ten Commandments, and trying to address the misrepresentation, the misunderstanding that the thou shalt nots are punitive or restrictive, where they're really freeing. Nicky Gumbel tells the story of sitting in to cover a friend's soccer team in order to, the friend wasn't available to come and coach. And Nicky said, so Nicky Gumbel, the founder of the Alpha course, he says, I really didn't know how to play. I hadn't played much, really didn't know the rules. So just kind of let the kids do what they wanted to do. And it quickly devolved into absolute and utter chaos. And it wasn't until his friend, the coach, came back and then started to call things into order and blow his whistle, and here and there are the boundaries and there are the nets and here are the rules and you're going to play according to. Suddenly the kids had a great time without the boundaries of the rules, the boundaries of the field. It just devolved into chaos. Nobody was having fun. Um, uh, Most of you know that I'm a musician. I could pull my guitar out and play some scales for you. When I was a kid, most of us, if you were a musician, when you were a kid, scales were drudgery. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It's like, how many times do I have to do this? And yet one of the things that was happening was that for a guitar player or for a piano player or for a horn player, you're building muscle memory, you're building muscle if you're a horn player. You're teaching your fingers to move without as much instruction coming from the brain, and eventually it becomes second nature. And I still practice with scales. If I pick up a guitar, often one of the first things that I do is run some scales, run some arpeggios, loosen my fingers up, find the familiarity with the neck. That which was constraining has become freeing. And this is what we're talking about with the Ten Commandments. We're talking about a structure that invites us into freedom. And the intent for the children of Israel, standing on the plains of Moab, anticipating going into the promised land, the intent was that they would have structure that would enable them to build a wonderful God-honoring society. And this is the invitation for us as well. And so I've invited you to think through what would be some best practices that would help you. What kind of conversations do you and your family need to have about what you're going to do on Sabbath? If you have younger children, it'll look differently than if you have older children, or if you're an empty nester, or if you're a single, or you've never you never had children. It's going to look differently. A different kind of conversation, different kind of negotiation. What does it need? What do you need for physical, emotional, and spiritual wellness? Now, this is not a hedonistic enterprise, because as we discussed on Sunday, part of Sabbath is to be unto the Lord. And so worship should be part of our Sabbath routine, part of our Sabbath practices. And I use the term routine, and I know that sometimes we slam that idea that routine can become drudgery, but we have some routines, we have some practices which create form and structure to our weeks. So to come back to the idea of one day is going to be a day of worship and rest, a day off. I'm not going to be a human doing. I am going to be a human being, and I am going to be with those around me. I'm going to be with my God. I am going to invite Him to restore. And in this restoration, I am also inviting Him to help me anticipate an eternal rest, a way of being with God. And I've invited you to go through some of these passages of Scripture in Hebrews and Matthew 11 and Revelation 14, which begin to speak of this, 2 Thessalonians chapter 1. Some of these passages of Scripture which anticipate both the experience now, drawing on, by way of example, the experience of the first people of God, but then looking forward to that which is promised to us as the new people of God. Would it be that there is something there for us to reflect on that helps us put some practices in place? So I suggested, maybe it's parking the smartphones, maybe it's lighting a candle to remind you of that, hey, there's something special we want to do here today. I want to rest. This is a Sabbath unto the Lord. What other practices would you be able to come up with? Maybe you want to fire some of those back to me, and I'll share them with others if you come up with some great ideas. And then I've given you an optional overtime question. I'm going to do an overtime video again this Sunday, talking about why Sunday versus Saturday. And I've left you several passages of Scripture there. If you want to go on into that, by all means. It's an interesting question, and the majority of Christianity has decided to worship on the first day of the week in celebration of the fact that Christ rose on the first day of the week, as opposed to the Old Covenant practice, which was the seventh day of the week. But if you want to go there, go there. If you don't have time for that, that's just fine. I'm Pastor Terry Lee. We are Dalhousie Church, and this has been the 10-Minute Coach. Bless you, and bye for now.